Today I'm joined by the fabulous Michelin-starred chef Sally Abe. Born in Nottinghamshire, Sally's culinary journey has led her to work at some of the most famous kitchens in the country, including the Savoy, Claridge's, the Ledbury and Elliston Street, before settling into her own head chef role and retaining Michelin star level cooking at the Harwood Arms in London. Sally is now on an exciting new journey. Find out all about it with me, your host, Shalina Tobin. How have you been through the various lockdowns, Sally?
Yes, it's certainly been a roller coaster, up and down. I think sometimes you have really good days, especially in the first lockdown when it was nice and sunny and you could just sort of sit out in the garden, read a book and watch the world go by. And then obviously, as time has gone on and things have been closed for longer and longer, it's just been getting more and more difficult, especially with the darker days and the shorter light hours. It's been tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've finally got opening dates. It's so nice to have that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a relief to finally have a date to work towards. It's just a shame that the date is still 3 months away from where we are now, really. Yeah, it's going
I
to be
know.
a long time.
I know. So I'm so excited to hear your news that you'll be consultant chef overlooking 4 new sites for the Conrad London. Tell us about how the opportunity came about and what exactly you'll be doing.
So basically, yeah, the Hilton team contacted me and asked if I would be interested in the position. And so we went back and forth for a while, and I did a cook-off for them. I think it was probably in April or May last year, just to sort of show them my food ethos. And the Conrad St James is right in Westminster, so right in the middle of Westminster Abbey and Big Ben and all
Great location.
everything London that there is to be London. So it's just quite a nice blend, really, with my sort of really British cooking style. And I think it's just going to give me an opportunity to sort of draw on all of those influences and put them through the food.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Sally, it's amazing to know how far you've come. When I know you really didn't really have any ambitions to be a chef when you were much younger. How did it all start for you?
Yeah, I never really, well, I definitely never set out to be a chef. Not until I was, probably 19, 20, I sort of fell into it, really, which I think is actually quite unusual. Most people sort of have this lifelong passion for food, and it wasn't that I didn't like food. I just, never really saw it as something to follow a career in, not for any reason in particular, just because it just sort of never, I don't know, I always just thought that I would, I actually wanted to be the BBC Radio 1 breakfast show host at one point. That was my biggest dream. But I suppose I kind of sort of drifted through school, really, and never really had anything to sort of get my teeth into. I was a bit naughty at school, and it wasn't that I couldn't do it, I just didn't want to, I suppose. And then when I moved away from home for the first time, I got really, really into cooking at home, and I was working as an office junior in the hospital, actually, and not really enjoying it very much, and trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And I sort of put 2 and 2 together and thought, I really like cooking, maybe I should pursue this. So I did, and it worked out all right in the end.
It worked out really, really well. And you had a great start with none other than Gordon Ramsay at the Savoy, and moved on to Claridge's. In those days, kitchens were incredibly tough. I mean, they still are, but at that time in particular, it was difficult, and very few women as well. Talk to us about what it was like for you back then.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously, the Savoy was the first kitchen that I walked into, and I don't think I had a clue what I was getting myself in for, to be honest. I'd say probably out of 25, 30 chefs at the Savoy, I think there was 4 girls, including me, and one of them was in the pastry. Yeah, so that's actually quite a lot. Some kitchens I've worked in, I've been the only girl for much longer periods than that. But yeah, it was very, very tough. Long hours, lots of pressure, very high expectations. I think it's also, you just, heaven forbid, you make a mistake, and the way things would be dealt with if you were to make a mistake were, you know, something I'd never experienced before. You know, obviously no one would ever shout and scream at you at school or college or whatever. So it certainly brought me down to earth with a bang, let's say that.
And what are the strengths that kind of really helped you get through it?
I mean, I'm naturally a quite stubborn person. My husband will testament to that. So, you know, if something doesn't work out for me the first time, I won't give up. I won't walk away from it. If I want to do something, I'll do it no matter what. So I think, you know, that resilience is probably one of the main things that's got me through. You know, I was never naturally a very thick-skinned person. That's something that I kind of learned over the years. You know, I had a friend that used to basically say, you need to just let it run off you like water off a duck's back, because I used to come home and just cry about the way I'd been spoken to or treated or whatever it was. I mean, you know, it sounds crazy and probably never normally admit that, but actually I was 21 years old, I was a baby, and you know, being spoken to like that, coming fresh faced out of, you know, moving away from home to London and all of the stresses that go with that, and then to have this really crazy pressure job where you all of a sudden you're expected to work 16 hours a day without a break, and you know, sometimes you don't even have time to go to the toilet. It's just a completely different world from everything that I'd known before.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there were a few other females as well working with you. Do you know if they're still in the industry? Did they make it as far as you did?
The girls from the Savoy, so Kim Melvin actually ended up, she moved to I think Hong Kong. She went to work for Jason Atherton. She worked for him for years and years. My friend Kat, she moved back to Australia, and she's a dog groomer now. So she's got 2 kids, and she's a dog groomer. Yeah, and then the other girl, Sam, I think she moved back to New Zealand. So yeah, no, unfortunately, no, not still running London restaurants. No.
Yeah, and I mean, at that time, how much of a role did Gordon Ramsay play as a mentor to you?
Well, I mean, you know, he is a very, very busy man, and was not really. He nipped in and out of Claridge's a couple of times, but certainly wasn't, you know, on the pass or on the stoves or anything like that at the time. But I suppose it's just more it was just the idea of working for him. Essentially, you know, I'd read his book Humble Pie before I moved down to London, and that was kind of an inspiration in his sort of dedication and hard work and that sort of ethos towards work. That's how, you know, my parents brought me and my sister up to be really hardworking people. So I think that's sort of where it pays off, essentially.
Yeah, it's funny how everyone sees Gordon Ramsay as this really kind of scary guy, when in actual fact, I mean, I think he's brilliant. He's very honest, constructive, to the point, and he's mentored and churned out some pretty amazing chefs in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's obviously been a big shift in the industry in the last few years towards the way we treat our staff and respect our staff. And I'm totally on that train. I think, you know, it was a very different time in the 90s when obviously what Gordon was doing was televised and it was glamorized as well. And, you know, the media jumped on that boat, and then all the other shows, unfortunately, that makes better TV than everyone being nice to each other and getting along nicely. So yeah, you know, and things would change, and you know, Gordon is obviously very, very close to my husband, and he's a fantastic guy, and he supported him a lot. So yeah, it's just one of those things, really.
Yeah. So you moved on to work with Brett Graham at the Ledbury. How did that experience differ from the Savoy and Claridge's in terms of being a female chef in the kitchen?
Well, I mean, I was literally the only girl at the Ledbury for about a year and a half at one point. So yeah, so that was quite tough. I mean, the Ledbury is obviously a restaurant that essentially shaped my career in that I was there for 5 years. And working with Brett was really fresh breath air, in that he's, you know, so willing to share all of his knowledge with you, and he, as a chef but also as a mentor, wants you to understand not only how to cook the food, but how to run your own restaurant. And he sort of drilled that in everybody from day one. He wanted us to understand the whole process. So yeah, it's been, I'm sure we'll be friends forever.
Yeah. And I mean, what is, if you can share, what is your fondest memory or moment with Brett?
Oh, wow, it's hard. I mean, the library, it was just such a special place, and there's so many memories. I mean, Brett took me and a couple of the other senior guys to the Mad Festival in Copenhagen a few years ago, and that was really nice, sort of getting to spend that time out of the kitchen together as a senior team. I think we wasn't from the library specifically, but from the Harwood, we celebrated 10 years of the Harwood Arms, and we got back all the old head chefs and we all cooked together, and that was a really fantastic evening, just to sit around after the meal with Brett and all the other head chefs and the other owners, and just have a glass of wine together. And it's those sort of moments after service or after an event where you're sort of winding down and discussing what went right and what went wrong, and just sort of those reflections. They're the memories that I kind of cling on to the most. And that's when like the old stories start coming out and people say, oh, when I worked with Marco, when I worked here or there or wherever. And I love all of those old stories. So.
It's, and I must say, it's actually really wonderful hearing them, speaking to amazing people like yourselves, and the kind of stories that come out is super, super nice to hear. But obviously, I mean, so taking you back to the Ledbury, I mean, obviously work-life balance is it's really, really important to kind of get that right. And I know you're working like flat out, insane hours. And of course, you also have a family life. Your husband, you mentioned earlier on, Matt, who's also chef patron at 3 Michelin starred restaurant Gordon Ramsay. And you both have had insane working hours. How did you guys manage to get that work-life balance right?
It's taken a long time, to be honest. I mean, I think obviously when we were both junior chefs, it wasn't as much of an issue in that we would be working really hard, but our days off would be our days off, and we'd normally get the same days off together, and we were both just knackered all the time. But I think it was when we both took on senior positions that is when it started to get a bit more difficult, because unfortunately, as I'm sure any head chef will know, it might be a day off, but you're still at the end of a phone, you're still getting text messages, emails, calls, if something goes wrong or something gets forgotten to be ordered or whatever it may be, you're always the first port of call. So you're constantly on the go. And when I first started at the Harwood, Matt's restaurant Gordon Ramsay was closed at the weekends, and obviously the weekend was the busiest time at the Harwood because it's a pub. So there was a long time where we really didn't see each other. And I think it was something that in the last couple of years, we've really both had to make a concerted effort and say, okay, we need to put our relationship first. And I think that's something that we've both learned the hard way, but managed to get back on track. And I think it's so easily done, and sometimes even now we'll sort of, you can feel yourself drifting, or I'll say, oh, get off your phone or whatever it may be. You really need to sort of prioritize what is important to you. I think, if everything went up in flames, what would you say first, your job or your marriage? You definitely say your marriage, right? So I think it's just looking at it from sort of a fresh pair of eyes. And yes, work is important, but it's not the be all and end all of everything. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess one of those moments that you realized was 5 years into working at the Ledbury, you decided to work as a recipe developer for Great British Chefs. So you just needed that time out to reflect and...
Yeah, I think so. Obviously 5 years is a really long time, and I'd had an amazing experience there, but I was just knackered. I was burnt out. I didn't really know what my next move was. And I suppose I'd never really considered that there was a world in food out of the kitchen. And I just kind of popped off this email to them on a whim, really. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just said, oh, hey, I've done this. Do you need my skills, and they snapped me up straight away. So yeah, it was really refreshing. You know, I did it for 18 months. It gave me time to reflect and think about what it was I wanted to do, and gave me weekends off for the first time in my life. So
nice.
yeah, it was good. It was good, but I did start to get itchy feet after a while. I think, you know, when you're accustomed to working a certain way for 10 years to then all of a sudden be thrown into an environment where it's much slower paced and he sits down every day and drinks cups of tea, it is nice, but I need a bit more pressure.
Well, I applaud you for listening to your heart and making that change, which I think can be really difficult and a scary thing to do, especially when you've worked somewhere for so long. But like you said, you I think I heard you say once that you love to write.
I do, yes, yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, I guess trying something new and just kind of reassessing, and then it gave you the opportunity to realize how much you do love being in the kitchen, and that's really where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody, you know, stand chefs are like, oh, once you come out you'll never go back in, kind of thing, and everybody assumed that was kind of it for me. But I knew I wasn't finished with cooking. I just didn't know where I wanted to be, and I just needed to sort of recharge my batteries, and I suppose see if the grass really was greener on the other side.
And it wasn't.
No.
So you moved on to one of my favorites, actually, Ellison Street for Phil Howard. How did it, I mean, was it refreshing working with Phil, working with someone new?
Yeah, I mean, working with Phil, it was only, you know, just under a year that we worked together, but working with Phil, it was literally the most fun experience. He is the most mellow, laid back, chilled guy, and you know, he's like, oh, so have you got a recipe? I'd be like, no, just make it, it's fine, you know what to do. And I was like, oh, what about this? And it was really nice because it really felt like a sort of partnership rather than, I know obviously he's the owner and I was the sous chef, but it felt like a partnership, and I felt that sort of he respected me as much as I respected him. And yeah, it was, I suppose Ellison Street was a lot less serious than any of the other restaurants that I'd worked in to that day. Not to say that, you know, we didn't take our job seriously and that the food was substantial in any way. It was just
More freedom.
Yeah, it was just calmer. It was a bit easy going. It was a bit more fun, you know, and I just really, really enjoyed that. The people there were nice. It was amazing to do an opening. I've never done an opening before, and yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun. I've got a lot of time to fill, and I was actually really, really sad to leave. I think I shed a little tear when I handed in my notice, but
well, were you able to set the boundaries in terms of, you know, making sure you didn't burn out again, you know, setting, you know, your work hours and that kind of stuff?
I mean, at Ellison Street, the hours were pretty good. Yeah, we used to get 3 days off a week, which was quite unheard of at the time. Yeah. And because the menu was only a la carte, you'd finish a lot earlier than you know, restaurants do tasting menus. So yeah, that was good. And obviously, we, you know, Matt's always had sort of set days off, so it would always be, I almost always get to spend 1, if not 2 days with Matt as well. So
right,
that was good. Yeah.
Amazing. So then you did go back to working with Brett at the Harwood Arms. And this is where you really sort of came into your own, and, you know, you attained the Michelin star level for the Harwood Arms. And it also got into the top 50 gastro pub list. And so how was it? This was your first main head chef role, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was hard. I'm not going to lie. It was very, very tough at the beginning. Obviously, it was my first head chef role. Well, I knew I was doing to a certain extent, but it's such a massive leap from sous chef to head chef. And you know, in a corporate world, I imagine that when somebody goes from being an assistant to managing director, there's some kind of sort of onboarding or training or any of that. Whereas when you're in the chef world, you're just expected to know how to do it, which obviously, no, you know, it's not. It doesn't come naturally to everybody. I mean, I really enjoy working with people, and I think that I'm quite a good leader, but the pressure of it will still, I think, would get to anybody, especially when it's so relentless. And when I first started the Hull, we were quite short staffed as well, so I was working like crazy hours. And yeah, it really, the pressure really does build up after a couple of months.
Yeah. And how did you keep the balance between the homeliness and the informality of a pub and maintaining a Michelin star? How did you manage that side of it?
I mean, I suppose you just have to remember your surroundings. Like Brett would always say, "Oh, the carpet has to match the curtains." Can't do anything too refined in a pub, and you know, it's completely right. But you can still make it taste amazing. I think, you know, the thing that is first and foremost for me is always going to be the flavor. So the flavor comes first. Make sure it tastes amazing, and then sort of consider, you know, there's a million ways to put something on a plate. So you can dress it up or dress it down, but as long as it tastes amazing, then that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. And how important is Michelin stars to you?
I think that Michelin is certainly the benchmark for the industry. You know, it's the one thing that everybody respects and strives for and considers above all the other accolades. I suppose Michelin is the ultimate accolade. But I'll always say I don't work for Michelin stars. I work for me and my team and the food and the business. And then if a Michelin star is something that comes with that, then that is just a reward for all of your hard work. I think if you spend your whole life chasing stars, then it kind of takes the essence out of what we do, really. It's not, we don't work for awards. They're just the consequence of our hard work, essentially.
Got it. Yeah. And I mean, we know you're a big advocate for empowering women, and there's a strong focus on looking after your staff and creating a better and happier work environment. Talk to us about how you managed to achieve that.
I mean, I think that being a female head chef, female cooks are probably going to gravitate towards that naturally, just because, you look up to other women in the industry. But I think I certainly would positively discriminate, I don't know if that's the word how we describe it, but I would always give the girls a chance, just because we don't always get a chance. So I just think if they send their CV in, even if it wasn't necessarily what I'd normally consider, I'd get them in and let them prove themselves, because I think girls obviously have a tendency to sell themselves short, so they might not write on their CV everything that they'd be capable of, or they might not have dared to go and work at the best place because they didn't think they'd get the chance. So I think it's important, if we're going to get more women in the industry and we're going to make it a more equal place to be, we need to give women a chance, because otherwise how are we ever going to make it better? It's just going to be a self-perpetuating system of men coming through, because unfortunately the girls that are less likely to sort of stand up and say, hey, I want that big job.
Yeah. So you also you implemented a hospitality program, yoga classes, and an employee assistance program. Talk to us about that, and how did all of that stuff sort of come about?
I suppose it just, it going to work, especially for the hours that we expect chefs to work, it's people don't work there because of the pay, and because we were, or the Harwood is a small independent business, we can't offer crazy salaries. We just don't, and the business wouldn't function if we were paying everybody £20 an hour. So I was just trying to think of other ways to support the staff, make the staff feel valued, that don't necessarily come through their pay packet. So I think the yoga and the mobility classes that we did were really nice team building exercise, and obviously if you promote their physical well-being, it promotes their mental well-being as well, and I suppose it just makes them feel more appreciated. And the employee assistance program is a program that Hospitality Action do, which basically means that if a member of staff is struggling financially or legally or with their mental health, that they can talk to somebody, a professional, on the phone. Because a lot of times, I think, being a head chef, you're also mum, counselor, like advice line, which is fine. Like I'm more than happy to help anyone with anything I can, but I don't always have the answers, especially when it comes to professional things like medical or legal or whatever it may be. So to have that sort of outlet and say, look, I don't have the answers, but as a business we facilitate this, so it gives them somewhere to go rather than them just being like, oh my god, I'm going to get kicked out of my flat or whatever it may be, and they they don't know what to do. So it's nice to sort of have that segue into being able to help them and point them in the right direction. And I think it's just part of building a culture and building a team and making people feel valued, because if they feel valued, then they'll stay. And that's essentially, you want people to stay, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And a lot of my chefs, especially, had been with me for a very, very long time. So, kind of, you reap the more you put into them, the more you get out of them, essentially.
Yeah, it makes a massive difference to your team. And kitchens are very well known for having short-term staff and people just, walking out regularly. But you had a team that stayed with you for quite some time. So that must be a real high for you to see your team succeed so well with you nurturing them in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that seeing them flourish is probably one of the sort of most proud moments, when you see, obviously the way the kitchen works, they kind of work their way around to the meat section and everybody's a bit nervous, and especially if they've really struggled at the beginning, and to then see those chefs progress, when maybe in kitchens before they've been told they wouldn't be able to do it, or they were no good, or they had to do pastry, and to be able to sort of coax that out of them and instill the confidence in them to be able to become those cooks and to be able to be really, confident, successful cooks in their own right, that there's no better feeling for me than that, to say, right, that person can do all of this now because of the environment that they've been nurtured in. We haven't breathed down their neck and shouted and screamed every time they've done something wrong. I'm not going to stand here and say that I sort of put my arm around them and give them a cuddle and give them a bit of cotton wool. That's not how a kitchen runs. It's a high pressure job.
Yeah.
But rather than coming down on someone like a ton of bricks, to say, okay, well, this is what went wrong, this is why it went wrong, let's try it like this, and find a way around it, then for me it's a no-brainer, really. It just works much better that way.
Yeah. And then, I mean, how does the yoga side of things work? I mean, is that something that you guys do? You encourage it in break time, or how does that work?
So we used to get a trainer to come. So the Harwood was closed for lunch on Mondays. So we basically used to get a trainer to come in on a Monday afternoon, and we'd clear all the tables and chairs out in the dining room and put all the mats out and do like an hour session together. Yeah, it was very nice.
That is lovely.
We did it on Zoom a couple of times during lockdown as well, but it wasn't quite the same.
Oh, well, I mean, you've spoken quite openly about suffering with anxiety. Was that the catalyst to creating these kind of programs for your staff?
Yeah, it certainly helped make me think about what I could do to help others. I think most chefs at some point in their career do struggle with anxiety or depression, or it is such a high pressure job. I'm not like naturally an anxious person, but I think I basically, you put so much pressure on yourself and you just get to a point where your brain just can't take anymore. So yeah, I suppose once I started to look after myself a bit better, then it helped me realize that I needed to look after the team as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, you have been in this job for so long and you've dealt with the pressure really well for so many years, and then boom, all of a sudden the anxiety just kind of like hits you. Do you know what that kind of trigger is?
I mean, I think for me it was taking on my first head chef role, I suppose I had quite a lot of like imposter syndrome, in that I didn't think that, I suppose I just thought, if I work a little bit harder, if I work a little bit harder, it'll be okay. But I'd never sort of given myself the chance to evaluate what I had achieved and where I'd come. I was just having to keep going, and I couldn't see the wood for the trees, I suppose, in terms of what I had achieved already, and how I'd come to be where I'd come. I suppose in the back of my mind, I kind of still thought I was, 19 and winging it. So it's just, and I suppose that came from the added pressure of being a head chef and having to talk to customers, and, people would sort of say, oh, that lamb was really good, and I'd be really embarrassed. And then I had to sort of get to a point where, my therapist was like, oh, why are you embarrassed that someone said they like your food? And I was like, oh, it's embarrassing. She's like, no, it's not embarrassing. Can you imagine, like, a famous chef like Tom Courage, if you said thanks very much for the meal, it was delicious, can you imagine them doing the same thing? And I was like, no, actually that is ridiculous. So, I suppose it's just changing the way you think about yourself and what you've achieved, and just using that to grow from, really. I mean, I think, it's the long hours, the pressure. This it's just a catalyst for bad health all over, physical and mental. There was obviously, when I was younger, I used to spend the weekends, drinking copious amounts and not sleeping very much, and that was obviously a coping mechanism at the time. But you soon, I think once you hit 30, your body's kind of like, no, you can't do that anymore. So
yep.
So it's just learning about yourself and understanding how you tick, and asking for help, and just reassessing things, and just realizing that it's not the be all and end all. You don't have to go all the time. And for me, yoga's been really, really helpful, and breath work, and just stupid things that you learn, not stupid things, but small things you learn how to do, like even breathing. I was at the dentist the other day, and I was really nervous, so I was doing sort of square breathing, where you like breathe before, hold before, breathe before. And even at the dentist, that helped me completely calm down. And that's obviously 5 years ago. It's something that I wouldn't have even considered doing, but it is very, very helpful.
So getting over the imposter syndrome is basically, was your therapist helped you to overcome that, and your anxiety is managed on a daily basis through yoga. So is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm quite lucky in that I haven't really suffered from it since. So it was probably a 6 to 9 month period where it was quite bad, and then I sort of did some therapy sessions and understood myself, and then I was able to sort of manage that. It was a shift in thinking, and a shift in the way that I thought about myself, and the way that I thought about what others thought of me, and I was able to sort of get on top of that. And now I'm able to, remind myself that I am good enough, and that I am worthy, and that I do deserve to be here. So, I was very lucky. I think there's obviously people who suffer, daily much, much worse than I ever have. And I'm lucky that I was able to get on top of it. But I think, I've witnessed a lot of chefs struggle with various demons and stuff over the years, and I think the most important thing is, first of all, admitting that there's something wrong, and second of all, being able to sort of reach out and ask people for help, whether it's medical or whether it's just sort of a shoulder to cry on. I think it's just really important having someone there that you can talk things through, rather than trying to bottle it all up, because it's never going to dissipate on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, just having that confidence and really just believing in yourself. This is just so inspiring to hear, Sally. I mean, I suffer from anxiety myself, and I actually do struggle with meditation and things like yoga. I don't have that sort of patience to just relax. And
oh no, me neither. Yes. Believe me. I still, I was doing yoga yesterday. I got it was a 45-minute class, and after half an hour, I'm bored of this now. And it's like, finish it. What else are you going to do? Just sit on the sofa?
Yeah, it definitely, it takes time to sort of get used to it. And just kind of, I guess it's all about having patience with yourself and understanding what your body needs as well as
Yeah,
your
exactly. And
mind.
it's not something, I think a lot of people say, oh, I'm no good at yoga, I'm no good. It's not about being good or bad. Like, no one's bad at yoga. They just are beginners, you know. It's not a 100-meter race. It's not a football match. It's not a competition. You're not competing with anyone else. You're not competing with yourself. You're not competing with the video that you're watching or the teacher that's teaching you. It's a process, and you just got to trust the process, as cheesy as that sounds. Like, that's all it is, you know. Some days you might be able to do the splits, some days you might not. It's just, that's how your body feels today, and you just have to sort of accept that and think, okay, well, tomorrow maybe I will. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And do you think that there's an element that comes with age as well, with, you know, a little bit more maturity and being a bit more patient with yourself, or having to go through that experience?
Probably, yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, yeah. I suppose when you're younger, you just run and run and run, and things just it's just easier when you're younger, isn't it? And you bounce back a lot quicker. But yeah, as you get older, I think you do need to sort of take a bit of time to look inside and see what's working and what's not working. And yeah, I guess wisdom comes with age, doesn't it? Well, not wise yet, but give it another 10 years.
Well, I'm sure you're definitely, I think you're pretty wise, actually. I think the things that you're doing at the moment in the workplace is pretty amazing. So
Thanks.
yeah, absolutely. So you really made your mark on the Harwood Arms. How are you feeling about not going back? How are you feeling about leaving?
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, obviously have left on fantastic terms with Brett. But yeah, it was 4 years. It was just time to move on. You know, I'd done an amazing job there. Loved it. We got some amazing recognition, more than I could ever have dreamed for. I think when I started there, I said, like, I want to put the Harwood back on the map, and I think that I really did achieve that, for all the right reasons. So yeah,
Definitely.
I'm really, really proud of everything that I've achieved there, and you know, obviously, it's just time to move on to the next chapter now.
Yeah. And how did Brett take the news? You must be devastated.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he was quite sad that I was leaving, but he understands. He's not going to try and clip my wings or anything, so to speak. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I said earlier, I speak to him probably once a week anyway. So, and I'm still, we're still going to be part of each other's lives, and maybe we'll work together again in the future one day. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Never say never. You never know what's going to happen, right? I mean, you've made waves of change for women in hospitality, and your work on empowering women and supporting mental health should be implemented in more kitchens. Uh, no doubt you'll be applying your work ethos to the Conrad restaurants. Will you be encouraging the employee assistance program there as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the Conrad's part of Hilton, so it's a massive company,
Yeah.
and they actually have values that align quite closely with mine. And they have Each for Equal program, which basically tries to encourage women into management positions, and they're very sort of forward thinking, and they have a lot of sort of internal schemes that promote their staff, and the culture at that hotel is fantastic. The general manager Beverly really, really looks after her team, and spends a lot of time investing in them and making them feel valued. So yeah, it's going to be more of the same, hopefully.
Yeah, amazing. And they're going to have, so I've heard they're going to have a glamorous new restaurant inspired by pioneering women. Is that right?
Yes. So the restaurant will hopefully be opening in end of May. Well, hopefully.
Yeah,
See
yeah.
what happens
So
in
this is the
lockdown.
one in Westminster, is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So yes, so basically the whole F&B is being completely re-kitted out. So the Blue Ball pub, which has been a pub on that site since I think 1909 or 1929. So that's had a nice facelift with a nice new bar. So that's going to be sort of classic British pub
Gastro bar.
classics in there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So probably a little less, a bit more pubby than what we do at the Harwood. I think the Harwood's like a pub by name, but the food's more restauranty. But this will be, fish and chips and shepherd's pie and real British, yummy, delicious classics done really, really well. Which then in the restaurant will give me a bit more of an opportunity to sort of spread my wings and do a more refined offering, which will still be modern British. But yes, it's going to be a celebration of women.
Amazing. So your main space is going to be in the restaurant kitchen, not in the pub kitchen.
Well, so I'm going to write the menu for the pub, but so I'll basically write the menus and look after the F&B for the whole 4 outlets, but the restaurant's going to be my main focus. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. I can't wait. I'm really excited about that. And are you going to be, I know we did talk about Michelin stars, but I mean, is that something, that kind of quality is something that you're going to be striving towards?
Again, I'm just going to cook the food that I love to eat and that I hope other people like to eat, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, you're a Michelin star chef, so. So, I mean, being such a beacon for women in hospitality, which woman in hospitality inspires you the most at the moment?
Probably, well, definitely Asma Khan. She, she's just relentless and not afraid to shout about what she thinks is right, and her whole approach and ethos, I just think is fantastic. I just think, she's just such a strong, powerful woman, and she's all about lifting other women up with her, and I just have so much respect for her, and her food is awesome as well. So
yeah, and she does a lot for I mean, she has a big strong workforce of it's only women, is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and she has her new place in Covent Garden, which I think she opened in the second lockdown.
Yeah, it was like mid-lockdown. Yeah, I'm yet to get there. Yeah, I've been to the one at Carnaby Street, but obviously have been locked down pretty much since then. So.
I know, it's so many places I'm just like, very excited to go to. My list is just growing and growing because it's backed up over the year. I mean, I keep saying this, you're so inspirational as well, Sally. And this year we've seen 2 women in the UK gain 3 Michelin stars each for their restaurants for the first time. I think Michelin are making, waves in terms of recognizing more women.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, Michelin give recognition where recognition is due. And I think, Claire and Mel and Rose have both worked so hard and they're at the absolute pinnacle of their careers, so they deserve to be rewarded for that. And yeah, I think it's great. I was very happily surprised when both of them got 3 stars, having, they were rolling out all the 1 stars and the 2 stars, and I was like, another guy, and then it was the girls at the top. So I was pretty happy about
that. Yeah, it was definitely an exciting part of the awards because I was watching it over Zoom. So bizarre watching the awards over Zoom. but yeah, it was a really, really nice moment. And I mean, between you and Matt, you have 4 stars between you. And in a world where you and Matt own your own restaurant, who would be head chef?
We wouldn't have our own restaurant together. That would
no. No, you sure?
No, I get asked that all the time. No, absolutely.
It's lockdowns as far as it goes.
Yes, yeah. That's definitely enough time spent together for a lifetime, I think.
So, Sally, tell me something about yourself that I couldn't possibly know.
Ooh, I really love drum and bass music. That's probably quite an unusual surprise, but yeah, I went to uni in Sheffield, and there's a massive dance music scene there, so I think that's probably, I don't know, I suppose not something you'd know just from meeting me, but yeah, I love a good, bop around the kitchen at the moment mostly. But
so in your working kitchen, do you play music?
Yeah, we do actually. Yeah, something that I introduced at the Harwood. Again, music's always been something that would never normally get paid in a professional kitchen
Yeah.
environment. But I think it really, really helps. And actually, I've got Matt onto it as well, so they play music in the mornings at Gordon Ramsay now as well. But it certainly
Oh,
helps, and
brilliant.
yeah, a bit of drum and bass definitely gets the boys and girls running around. So.
Gets everyone pumped, ready for service.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Sally, thank you so much for chatting with me. It's been absolutely lovely, and I'm truly grateful for your time.
Thanks for having me. Nice to speak to you.
And you. And if you guys want to keep up to date with what Sally is up to, you can find her on Instagram at Little Chef Sally, and I'm at Posh Nosh Gal. And as always, if you enjoyed today's interview, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps others find me.